Hey guys, welcome back to another video. So in this episode, we are going to be building a game portfolio, or like you say, like popular games that are available as of now. So this is our platform we are going to be building. So we're just going to use rogue.io API. So they have an extensive database of all the games that have been released, and then what are their ratings and which platforms which are available, all the steps, right? So we are going to be building a basic stuff out of it, and then you can actually work on it to make it more looking like more, let's say, like intuitive, user intuitive, and then you have a pretty platform. So this can be used to, like, once you introduce a backend code and then you have a certain user set, then each user can mark one of the game has been downloaded and played, and then it's not good, or they can rate it as well. So this kind of thing we can do it with this particular API. So for now we will just build a like basic game listing from the rogue API. So as of now, as you can see, this is the final product of how it looks like. This is the game name, and then it has a like cover image, and then which platforms does it support, and then when it was released, and then what is the current rating. And if you go to the end, you can see you have load more games as well. So if you click on load more games, I will give you the next set of games which will be loaded like over the API. All right, so let's take a look into how we can build it. First things first, you can go to rogue.io, then API docs, and then you click on get API key. So it will take you to their login page. There you can click on sign up, and then you give email, username, and password. Once you have it, once you signed up, it will ask you for email confirmation. Just confirm in the email, and then you go back to the API itself. So once you go to the API, once every sign up is done, you will get something like this page. So inside the page, you can get the API key. You just copy and then use it in our code. Okay, so let's get right into it. First of all, we have to create our own Gamify folder. So I will go over here and then check. Okay, no folder is open, so I will open the folder where I can use. So inside code, I will go to Bootstrap JS apps, create a folder called Gamify, and then I will open that. Okay, so I'm gonna increase the font size, and next thing is I will create an index.html file so that we can use it. Index.html, and then I will give you the link to the index.html and style.cs. We are going to be using Bootstrap 5 in this version, so that's a CSS framework which will help you in building out all the good stuff. All right, so I'm just going to copy the index.html from my code. You can just copy it from the link in the description. So if you notice, we are calling the CDN of Bootstrap 5.2.3. I'm using the 5.2.3 version. And then I'm gonna also import the font awesome library, which can be used for the icons part. Okay, and then I'm gonna also import style.css. We will also create that file, style.css. And then if you notice, I'm also creating dev.env.js. So here we can change that to prod.env.js, since like in this case we're gonna be building it as production, let's say. So I'm gonna create those two files as well, prod.env.js, and then I'll also create script.js. So we have all the JS files as of now, and then everything is linked. So let's just quickly check if this is working with live server extension. So yeah, that part is working. I think the CSS is still not loaded yet. So let me check what is the error. Console. Yeah, so I haven't copied the style.css yet. So I will also copy the style.css, which you can find in the link in the description. So once you copy that, yeah, the CSS is done. So the styling and CSS is basic. You can just go through it if you want. And then the first step would be we have to get the API key. So that API key we can inside the production.env.js. I will create a const API key, and then I'm gonna, like, you have to use your own API key. So I will say replace your API key here, right? And then I will, like, after that we can get all these elements. So we have to access this loader. So this is the loader part. When the game is starting to load, we can get this loader, and then like we will just remove the loaded class which will show the loader, and then once the loading is done, you can just directly add the class which will hide the loader. Okay, so I will call loader L, and then document dot get element by id, and then js preloader. Okay, so after that, I will also get the game list container element so that we can add all these games once the API is loaded. So for that, I think the game list is over here, which has a class of game list. So we will just use query selector and then dot game list. Okay, so we will also access the load more games button so that once we click on it, we have to load the next game section we have. Okay, so for that, I think the button class is main button. Okay, just gonna copy that and then paste it over here. And then once you have it, we can initiate the URL. So this URL can be found in the API documentation of rogue.io. So if you go over here, the URL is actually documentation. So inside the documentation, you can see that this is the URL that they are calling. So in our case, we have to get the games. So list of games, right? So get a list of games. If you look at it over here, it's actually calling api.rogue.io API then /games. So we will just use that. I'm just going to copy it from here. And then I will call, then we have to access the key as well. So we have to send the key from here. So we will add the parameter key, and then we will use template strings to access the key which we have defined over here in the production environment.js. So I'm gonna just quickly replace with my key which I have put over here. Let me just copy it from my rogue.io over here, and then I will just add it over here. Once I have that, the key is done. Now I will also add certain conditions to it so that we will get a updated value from here. Okay, so that can be found over here, and like I'm gonna just get the games which are in the date range between 2022, or we can just say 2023 January 1, and then comma 2023, let's say June, so which is June 30. Okay, and then we will also set the ordering as added. So if you go over here, ordering as added. Okay, and then once you have it, you have the URL basically. So we will just call the get API using fetch. Okay, we will just go over here. This is the one. So that was the old one. So this is the current one. So let's just make sure if this is working. So console.log URL check. Okay, so the URL is actually displayed over here, which means we are in the correct window. Okay, so now we will call a function in the beginning itself. Let's say load games. Wait, load games and then URL. So when the script is loaded, we will directly call this function in the beginning. So we will create a function for that, load games, and then the URL as the input parameter, which will take it from here by default, right? And then we will display the loader element. So for that, we will just remove the loaded class list from loader element loaded. Okay, So as I said earlier, loader element has a class called loaded. So I will just remove that in order to show it. So if you notice, I have saved it. Load games URL, loader load classes dot remove, loaded. Okay, so it's actually showing. Okay, so that part is done. Now we can call the fetch function. So inside that, fetch will take a URL and then options. So we don't have any options. We will use the default one, and then it will return a promise. So once that fetch is resolved, then we can get the response, and then we will just convert the response into JSON so that we will have the JSON objects, which is part of the response object. And after that, we will get the data, and then inside the data, we will just, for now, we will just print it, console.log data, and then see what is we are getting it from, right? So data, and then it should give us the data. As you can see, we are getting the data. Just gonna like increase the font size. Okay, so if you notice, inside the data we have count, next, previous, and results, right? So inside the results we have all the games of like 20 games by default. We can increase the size of this, but for now I'm just gonna like stick with 20. And then like when you click on next button, you have to show, we have to just call this particular URL, which will actually get the next set of games. Okay, so we have, I'm just going to copy this object so that we can use it later on. Copy object, and then I'm going to create a new one and then set it to JSON. Okay, so we have everything we need over here, and then we will just see how the results look. So I'm gonna just press Ctrl K2, okay, and then Ctrl K3. So this will give me a like pretty minified view. And then I'm gonna get rid of the platforms, stores, and then ratings, and then added by status, tags, ESRB rating, short screenshots, parent platforms, genres. Okay, so we are gonna be just using the name from the game. If you notice, the name is being displayed over here, and then the parent platforms. So you have platforms and then parent platforms. So in platforms, you get PlayStation 5, PlayStation 4, all the series which are supported, right? So in our case, I don't think we need to show all the different platforms which are supported. That can be shown in a like details page if you are going to build it. Otherwise, we can just stick with parent platforms, which will have just like what are the main parent platforms which is supported. So we can just use this one. Okay, and then we can also make use of the review, no, rating. So ratings is actually 3.99, and then the rating top is 4. So we can just use that from our perspective, and then the release date is this one, so we can use that. Okay, so it also has a background image which the URL is given. You can just directly use the background image as a URL, and the rating you can use it from here, and the release date you can get it from this key. Yeah, that key. Okay, so now we have all the data we need. Now we will just set the URL for the next one. So let next game list URL equal to null. In the beginning, we will initialize to null, and then once you have the data, we will check if the data has this particular value, which is data dot next. If it's there, we will just use that value as the next URL. Otherwise, we will just do null. Okay, so and then we will get all the games from the result array. So we will do data dot results over here, right? So we can do data dot results, and then once you have the results, we can just loop through it. Games dot for each, and then each game we will create a game item element, which is our card. So inside that, I'm going to just write out some Bootstrap classes. So div class equal to call lg3, and then in large screens I have to show just 3 width, and then in medium screens I have to show in 6 width, and then smaller screens I have to show in full width. Okay, So that is done, and then after that I will create another class called item. So inside that I will show all the elements as we need, and then inside that we will have an image element with a source equal to, so the source we can get it from game dot media, I think it was game dot background image. Okay, so we can just do game dot background image, and then we will just the alt as our game dot name, then it's followed by image. Okay, so that image is done. Then after that we will also create an h4 class to show the name of the game. So h4 class equal to game name, game dash name, and then we will have the game name itself over there, game dot name, and then we will close the h4 tag. So inside the h4 tag we will also have all these platform names. For that I will use a span with class equal to platforms, and then inside the platforms I'm going to also use a break so that it comes in the next line, and then inside that we will call a function called get platform string. Then we will pass the game.parent platform as the attribute value to it. Okay, and then we will close the span element as well. So what it does is it will call this function with this value as the parameter, as the argument basically. So you have the parent platforms over here, you will just take it and then map through it and then return a string with the value in it. So in certain cases the value can go a little bit higher, so in those cases we will put a truncate section. You can either use Bootstrap's truncate value on this class, or in my case I'm just using plain JavaScript, and then inside that if the string is actually more than 30 characters then I will use the normal substring which is available in JavaScript. So we will build that function later on. For now, and then just complete all this card structure itself. Okay, so you have UL, and then inside the UL I will have two li elements. So these li elements will have access to the rating and the release date. So inside one of the li element, the first one would be an I tag with class equal to fa, then fa star, and then I will close the I tag, and then I can just add another span with class name equal to rating. Okay, and then inside the span element we will just use game.rating, and then we will replicate this, and then inside the game instead of game.rating we will use released. We'll have the date, and then the class would be date. Okay, and then the font or some class is fa regular and then fa calendar, so it will have the calendar displayed nice. Okay, so we have all these UL elements completed, and then we will also have to close all these div, and then the next one as well. Okay, so the div is completed, and then each of these elements should be added into the game list. So we will call insert adjacent HTML, and then we will say before end add the game item element. Okay, so let's just check over here how it's being replicated. So get platform string is not defined, so for now we will just create a function called get platform string, and then it will take in all the platforms, and then it will return an empty string. You can just use directly. Okay, so we are not hiding the loaded class, so that's why. So once the data is successfully completed we have to add the loader class back so that it's actually removed. Okay, so let's check. Yeah, so that's working. So that part is done, and then the images are showing up, the name is showing up, the rating is showing up, and the calendar is also showing up. Okay, so that section is done. Now what we can do is we have to write this particular function for the platform string. So in this particular case, what I will do is I will map through each of the platform we have. So const platform str equal to platforms dot map each platform, we have the value, and then we will say each dot platform dot name. Okay, and then we will use a join on top of it, join, and then it will be followed by a comma space. So if you notice, each of the platform, each value has a platform object in it, and inside the platform object you have a name and then a slug. So I'm going to use the name in it. Okay, so that's what I'm doing over here. So each of the platforms I'm going through, and then inside the map I'm checking each element, and each element I have the platform and then the name. Okay, so that is done. And then once you have the platform string, I will check if the platform string is greater than, if platform string dot length is greater than 30, then I will return a substring of like 30 plus then triple dot, which means that there are more characters which is followed by. Okay, so return platform string dot substring. Okay, and then 0 comma 30 and plus a triple dot. Okay, otherwise I'm gonna just return the actual platform string itself. So let's check. Yeah, so that part is working, everything is showing up nicely. Okay, so once that is done, we have to like check if the next button is being shown up. So this is added, and let's say if you have the next game list URL, then what we'll do is, if you have the next game list URL, then wait, we can put this. Okay, next game list URL. If you have the next game list URL, we will just remove the hidden button, hidden class from the load more games. Right, this class we will remove it so that that button is actually shown. So class list dot remove hidden, else if the next game list URL is null, then we will add the hidden class. Okay, so this makes sure that if the button is not there, then what will happen is like the button will be hidden. So we will also catch if any error happens in the fetch library. We will just do a console.log and an error occurred followed by the actual error. Okay, so let's check if yeah, that part is working. And now we have to listen to the load more games button event listener. So we'll set up an event listener, load more games button dot add event listener. We will look for the click event. If it's clicked, then we will directly call the function using the new URL. So we'll check if next game list URL is present and it's not null, and then we will load games with next game list URL. So let's check if that part is working. We'll go down and then load more games. As you can see, the next part is coming up. All right, that's it. If you guys want to like dive deeper into the rock.io API, then you can go ahead and do it. It also has short screenshots. So once you click on any of the game, you can actually show the screenshot of that particular game in a modal, and then you can build your way up from there. So this is gonna be a like good thing for your portfolio building as well. So you can work on the portfolio and then so on and so forth. All right. So if you guys have any questions or like doubts regarding this particular project or anything else, just let me know in the comments. I will address you guys as soon as possible. All right. Until then, keep coding. I'll see you guys in another one.